It sounds funny. So good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Village of Corrales governing body meeting, regular meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. So I'd like for people to turn their phones off or put them on vibrate, please, so it doesn't disturb the meeting if possible. And once you've done that, please stand and join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So, new governing body. All right. So this is going to be the roll call, our first roll call. Councilor Miera. Here. Councilor Woolman.
Here.
Councilor Murray.
Here.
Councilor Burkett.
Here.
Councilor Knight.
Here.
And Councilor Alsobrook.
Here.
Congratulations. Glad to have you all here.
Mayor, may I just remind the council, would you make sure you speak into your microphone? You want to hold it about the width of your thumb to your pinky away from your
You got to
mouth?
kiss it.
Yes, it kind of needs to be right
Yeah.
up there. Get close and
I
personal
remember
with it. That way our Zoom participants can hear you. And this is also the recording. So thank you.
So have you all had an opportunity to go through the agenda, look it over? Melanie, we don't have any additions or corrections or anything like that. Okay.
Not that I know.
So I need a motion to approve the agenda, please.
So moved.
Do I have a second to
I'll
approve the
second.
agenda?
I'll second that, Mayor.
I'm sorry, Bill, did you do that?
No, Councilor Murray.
Oh, who did the second? Who did the, you made the motion? You did the second. Okay. So we had a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And no. Ayes have it. Agenda is approved. So now we're going to move on to presentations. And the first one we have is John Perea from Parks and Rec Commission. Okay. So, Ms. Cazetta, did I say that right? Okay. I guess it's your turn.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Lorena Quesada, and I'm with Roadrunner Waste Services. I am the account manager for your trash and recycling for the Village of Corrales. I have been in the trash business for 32 years, almost, and I've been managing contracts for municipalities and government for a little bit over 10 years. Just wanted to introduce myself and make myself available and let you know I'm at your service. If there's anything I can help you all with. That was it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Mayor,
it. It's nice meeting you.
Mayor, question.
Yes, Bill.
Hi, welcome. Thank
Thank
you
you.
for coming tonight. I know it's under new ownership. And I had a question,
Yes, sir.
specific. A few months ago, on the recycling day, my barrel was full. A cardboard box on top of the container.
Okay.
Came out and found the cardboard box on the ground as they went to take the barrels back. So I called the office and said, what happened? They said, well, if you put anything with recycling that's not in the barrel, that's a special pickup and an extra charge. Is that the policy of new management as well?
That's been always the policy. Anything needs to be inside the container, anything for us to pick up.
So they made the effort of taking it off the container and putting it on the ground rather than turning around and putting it in the truck. And that would have been, if they had, it's done, it would have been an extra charge.
That's correct. Unfortunately, I could go back and
I
look
think
at
it
that
was a
specific,
policy,
right? But the policy is everything needs to be inside the container for us to pick it up.
but- Okay, thank you.
No problem. Any other questions?
Mayor,
Mr. Burkett.
I had spoken with the previous owner right before the transition. He actually came into one of our meetings and we discussed having a green waste bin put somewhere in the village or the ability for green waste to be picked up on a somewhat regular basis. Has there been any discussions of that? I know I got an email back saying that was something that would definitely get taken care of, but I haven't heard anything about it since then. I just wanted to follow up on that and see now that we're under new ownership, if that's still the plan.
We can definitely do it. I know, Ron, I don't know if we did the glass one. Is this in addition to that?
So let me clarify something. This is her, she's coming here to introduce herself. This is not part of a business meeting per se. This is not part of a question and answer period. This is not part of a complaint period. So what we're doing, we're saying, hi, welcome to the village. Glad you're here. And then if you have other issues, you call the business and deal with it just like any other individual in the village.
Can we get an email address then as part of the introduction,
Yes, sir.
please?
Lorena
Okay.
dot Quesada, QUEZADA at wasteconnections.com.
Okay. You want to say that? You want to do your presentation? Or you want to do it now? Okay.
Thank
And
you.
and I'll leave you on my card as well.
Perfect.
Mayor, I would just add to that is that Lorena and I have had 3 meetings so far in person. We're going to have another one, I believe, tomorrow.
Correct.
And so any questions or concerns, just funnel them to me. We've had a discussion going back 20 years, various associations in various places that we've crossed paths. So we have I think the relationship is going to be good for the village and productive for the village and actually create some more efficiency. So if you've got anything you want me to pass on to her, please contact me and we'll do it.
Ron Curry, Lorena, I think Lorena's from
Who's the
Roadrunner.
man talking?
Ron Curry.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know.
Nothing.
Okay.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Glad you're here.
Thank you.
Organizational procedures, Mr. Audio.
Good evening. I'll try to keep this brief because what will happen most of the time is things come up on the fly and we have to deal with them as they arise. And I don't want to put anybody to sleep with a lot of legal discussion at the beginning. But just because there are 3 folks who were newly elected during COVID who kind of came in the middle and the normal training processes and things weren't in place. Now we have 2 other new counselors and a new mayor. Some of you have served before, and I know that, so I'm not going to, as I said, beat the horse to death. But what I wanted to just do is to orient us to our normal course of business. Our ordinances call out the order of business in this meeting. It is specifically outlined in the general ordinances of the village and in section 2-60, and it discusses how the meetings are going to take place. They're available to anyone who doesn't know it. Municipal Code of Corrales. It's a municipal code service. That's the name of the company that provides it. And so they are online, they're updated regularly, and it's a really handy tool to have close by. One of the things that is different about serving in a village like this is it's really, really small and personal. You can't move without meeting someone you know, and you meet them in all types of different contexts. So it's good to keep in your role as counselor and mayor. What happens a lot of times is constituents will come to you with issues that may end up being before you. And what you have to do as a mayor or legislator is sift those issues to decide whether it's something that you can discuss with them or not. If it's a personnel issue, let's say you get a call out of the blue from a village employee and they want to talk to you about the horrible conditions that are existing. Well, be nice to them, but refer them through the chain of management, because if there's discipline with that employee that comes about in the future, it's brought before you and you have to act as a quasi-judicial hearing officer in that personnel matter. Same with land use cases. You don't want to have conversations with folks who have or may have a case that comes before you, either in a quasi-judicial context because there's an appeal that comes to you, or they're applying for a zone change and it's going to come to you anyway. So just keep that in mind. When you're acting as legislators, when you have that hat on, anything's fair game. When someone's coming with their concerns about the library, the Bosque, or anything else that is of legislative nature, then that is fair game to discuss with them. But just watch for the things that may become quasi judicial, personnel, land use, liquor hearings, and things like that. The other thing about roles that is a little bit unique is some people have come from places where there's a lot of citizen legislating involved. In New Mexico, that is not the case. We are a representative democracy, and you folks are elected to represent the citizens. So there's very little citizen initiative that happens. It's primarily through the legislative process with the governing body. The mayor is part of the governing body, but he only votes, in this case, I'll have to get used to that after Mayor Roque, but he does not vote unless to break a tie. Otherwise, it's just you folks voting. Then I made part of the packet, kind of the state statutes. There's very little state statutory guidance, but I provided you what there was for defining these roles between legislator and mayor. Think of the mayor as the administrator, the elected administrator of the community. In our case, we're lucky enough to have Ron as the administrator as well, but he reports along with the clerk and all other employees to the mayor. He is the boss, manager, CEO, if you will, of the village. And if there are problems that arise, as I said, it comes from both directions. An employee may seek you out and you need to direct them through the mayor or the manager, and they will let you know how they want you to handle that. And then the other way that it happens is when you're trying to find information and you might seek out a specific person because you know they have the information. But in our form of government, it's best to do that only through the administrator because they can feel like they're not able to adequately manage their employees if there's a direct conduit through to the legislators and there are discussions being had in that manner. So keep those things in mind for the regular functioning. And obviously, if something's not getting done, then you can let the mayor and the manager know that these employees have not been dealing with this issue according to your constituents, and then they will follow up on that. Because that's where it usually comes up. Some constituent will call you and say, well, Public Works really screwed this up. They didn't connect to my driveway properly. Well, I would refer that to Ron or the mayor, and then they will work with Michael Chavez and get it straightened out. And then you deserve a callback to know that it's been resolved from those guys, and that will happen. So keep those things in mind. The issues that I thought were significant to bring up in regard to the mayor's authority come from state statute 3-11-6, and it's in regard to employment. Subject to the approval of a majority of all members of the governing body, the mayor shall appoint all officers and employees except those holding elective office, and designate an employee to perform any services authorized by the governing body. So in other words, it's that legislative hat, policy-making hat that you all wear and creating the programs that you want to see implemented within the village. And then it's up to these folks to implement those policies. So that's the basic structure. But as you can see, it's a partnership. There's no employee can be fired, no employee can be hired without coming through this body. So essentially what happens is you are the final check on everything. The only things that this administration can do are those matters that are delegated to them by state law or by you through an ordinance. So it is definitely a partnership. And that's really just how I wanted to end is we can achieve a lot of things. I've been in governments that resulted in complete meltdowns when people started getting out of their lanes and weren't communicating in a constructive manner. You guys do a really good job, and I really have seen very few issues where decorum has been a problem, but I would recommend to you reading that 2-60, just for those general rules of decorum. They're very simple and straightforward. Where the problem arises is when it's a issue that's really important to you and also someone else on the body, and then you might start stepping over each other in conversation and not going through the mayor to recognize who's speaking. So just keep those things in mind. And the mayor is also essentially the sergeant at arms to keep the peace in the chambers if anything gets rowdy or out of hand, which I haven't seen happen. But if it does, he's the man. And then, of course, it is then the police chief or one of his officers that would step in if it's that situation. But I haven't seen it. I don't think we'll see it. I'll be happy to answer any questions if you have any on that item. We may do more of this. Randy Van Vleck works for my firm, and he is very good at describing what I just went through in greater detail if we think it's going to be useful or helpful.
Yes, Stuart.
Thank you, Mayor, councilors, and thank you, Aunt Randy. So a couple of meetings ago, there was talk about there were rules about getting items on the agenda. And Mayor, I was wondering are you going to kind of establish that protocol, which we can submit things to you
Yes,
for inclusion?
yes. They may not be on the next agenda because we're already looking at the agenda after next, but they'll get on the agenda. Sometimes if what you want on the agenda requires a little more information, or I would feel a little more comfortable with information to present to you, we may spend a little time, maybe a couple of weeks, miss a meeting in order to get that data, that information. So we want it to be efficient and constructive because we're doing the business of the village and we don't want to keep rehashing and going over the same thing several times. So we'd like to be able to give you the data, give you the information, we all discuss it and we make a decision.
Thank you.
Mayor, councilors, just a quick question in terms of employee hiring and firing. Is there a certain level below which the governing body does not get involved?
It'll depend on if you've delegated that authority. State statute is clear on it, but what you see is much like occurs at the organizational meeting is there's the selection of the appointed officials and then department directors, obviously. And that's where I've not seen any other hires come through, but it's something that we'll discuss of how that has been handled at the village and whether it's a good idea or not. As may have been mentioned to you, I started under the prior mayor working on the personnel policy. It's a very outdated and arcane policy. And so we're working on bringing that up to at least the 20th century. We're hoping the 21st, but it just hadn't been done in a long time. So we'll be bringing that back, and that's one of those issues we'll look at that time.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Audio. Okay, it's your turn.
Under the administrator's report, the first person, as usual, I'd like to call on is Tanya.
Thank you, Mayor, councilors, Administrator Curry. As usual, I'm here to give a COVID update, even though there's so much more going on. First thing I'd like to start with is I did update the webpage this last week to include the new quarantine and isolation calculator to make it easier for people to understand when to quarantine, who needs to quarantine, and who needs to isolate. The state's been pushing it. It was put out by the CDC. The other thing, we've only had 5 lab confirmed cases in Corrales for April, which is wonderful. We ended March with 16 cases. That is really good. However, our R0 value, which is our spread rate, is going up. I thought we'd be at 1 today, but right now we're at 9.8, which is still below massive spread. So one person is only going to infect 9.8, not a whole person. So that's really good. However, we do have counties within New Mexico who are well above the 1. So I think we're moving back towards that. But we know that the East Coast has been increasing quite regularly, and the United States as a whole is up. We are expecting a spike. I looked at several different prediction maps. And the spikes for New Mexico are way up to 50% and also staying pretty level. The problem with Omicron and all the subvariants, there's about 5 subvariants of Omicron right now, and there's a lot of recombination of Omicron, is we just don't know what it's going to do. So pretty much where we've been the whole time. If you look at CDC's community map for masking, it shows everyone's in the green except for Hidalgo County. COVID Act now puts Hidalgo County and Los Alamos both ran a very high transmission. They're both well above 1% R naught value. One's 1.2 and one's 1.8. However, if you look at the healthcare one, and it's for healthcare and emergency managers to start planning to see when they need to start bringing more staff in or when there may be mitigation stuff that needs to go on. We are moderate. We're not. We dropped a couple weeks ago. We were high, so Sandoval County has dropped to moderate. So that's very, very good. Corrales did get 3 of their 5 cases over the weekend. So I'm watching that to see if we get any more. And I'm watching the schools, and the schools are Rio Rancho Public Schools is still holding steady about 2 cases per day. So none of those huge spikes. I know that Councilor Murray really likes knowing vaccine data. They still have not started with the booster and the next booster that's out for the 50+ data, but Sandoval County is at 97.1% vaccinated, at least 1 vaccine, and 83.9% for 2. So we're still climbing. New Mexico still one of the top states for vaccination, which is wonderful. This last, between April 3rd and today, the Corrales has done 327 vaccines for people, which is 4% of our population if you do it out for population rate. So that's really, really good. We have 36 vaccines already scheduled for Thursday and 36 already scheduled for Saturday, with other sites opened. We were supposed to be getting a new shipment of Pfizer in because we're down to 54 Pfizers. I just got a shipping delay notification because of the storms that are reaching across the Midwest. So I'm hoping it hasn't shipped because the shipping container may not work as well because it's on dry ice, and it does have to arrive at least -85 to be able to, for us to use it. So I'll track that. I will be happy to, in the US, like I said, is trending upwards. Deaths right now are steady, slightly up, and hospitalizations are kind of looking like they're going up. Not massive spikes, but we of course are watching for all those spikes, especially with the recombinant Omicron with Alpha and Beta and Delta and Omicron. There's a lot of different viruses out there right now that we're watching. I'll be happy to stand for any questions.
Looks like everybody's okay, Tanya.
I want to make sure that all the counselors are aware that on 19th and 20th of next week, myself and Raina will be holding budget hearings with the various department heads. And also we'll be taking committee requests, committees that are attached to various departments. We'll be taking those requests should be made through the various department heads. For instance, the Boski Commission should make its request through Anthony. We have some, like the tree committee has made some requests. Those requests will be looked at and viewed by the people that are impacted. I'm the liaison for the tree committee, but some of the requests will go through Lynn and Michael and so forth and so on. But those requests will be coming before Raina and myself on the 19th and 20th. Then we'll develop a budget that we'll present to the governing body in a workshop. And then we'll be turning that budget in for its first review on June 1st. And that particular budget does not, by DFA rules, does not have to be voted on by resolution by the council, but we'll be likely trying to present that to you as well. But that's our June 1st deadline, is to get the first pass of the budget into DFA. And so, but you'll be able to get your licks in, so to speak, in the workshop, and then any further discussion that we want to have in the council prior to June 1st. And then, of course, after it's submitted again to DFA, we'll be having another pass at it sometime either in late June or early July before it comes up final from DFA. So, but the important thing there is I want to emphasize, especially for the committees, the ad hoc advisory committees, this is the first year that we've ever tried getting budget input from them. They've always tried to, beg, borrow, or steal during the course of the year. And we thought this would be a better approach. And I would say, just like I would say to the department heads, just because you make the request doesn't mean you're going to get the request. But this seems to be a more organized way to go about it rather than people kind of raising their hand during the course of the year, because most of these committees know what their expenses are or what they want to do in the way of good work for the particular commissions. But these are advisory committees. We cherish their work. We appreciate the work, but we want to make sure that they're going through a process flow that the department heads are aware of. And anything that's on a committee that comes from a committee that ends up being budgeted for that particular committee will be a separate line item in that department's budget. So it won't be commingled into the operational budget of that particular department. Next thing I want to mention, and I'll give a shout out to Councilor Woolman because of all the work that he's been doing over the last several months on the animal services issue. The village is actively engaged in working with, is going to be actively engaged in working with the Dennis Friends Foundation, which is a third standard, and they're going to find an organization to do a thorough assessment of the animal services facility in its current state. And this is the first step, I believe, in what is the most sound, sustainable investment for the future of animal control services for the village of Corrales. The village feels very positive about this path to a solution and looks forward to this cooperative and collaborative process that will produce the most optimal outcome possible based upon the community needs. And that's not to say that that's not going to keep us from continuing in the short term. I don't think this assessment's going to take, it's not going to be one of these things that rolls on for, months or something like that. We're anticipating that I'd like to see it done certainly no later than June. But in the meantime, we're continuing to work with Dennis Friends Foundation on other issues, on other contributions that they might be willing to make to the current facility so that we can continue to improve it. Because we do all have a great appreciation for the animals here in Corrales, and we'll continue to work in that direction. So Mayor, if there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. And
Council, you have any questions? So like some of the things such as the wall separation, the drain, those things are going to proceed.
yes, we're going to be looking at those. Some of that work that we can do ourselves
Right.
through Public Works. And we've been funding issues between some of the issues that we have in animal services as far as budgeting. They're looking to get another vehicle, and then we're looking at some of the drains, and that work is going to proceed as we go forward, even though that this assessment's going to be going on in the background at the same time.
Thank you very much. Okay, so now it's time for Councilors Forum. And this section is for informational purposes only, not for discussion or debate, to inform the government body of an issue or concern that would not be addressed on the agenda during the business session.
Mayor.
Mr. Wallman.
Mayor, councilors, two things. One, I want to thank again Melanie and Carol Clifford of Albuquerque Hearing and Balance for the referral to Mike Langner for the sound system, which is greatly improved here in the council chambers. But most importantly, to those who are perhaps at home or here, this is now a looped system for hearing aids. And there aren't many council chambers, I think probably in the state of New Mexico, have that. We now have a loop for those who wear hearing aids. One thing, just remember to turn on the T coil. My wife wears two, and she informed me that that has to be turned on to make that work. That's part of the system here, and then above the doors there as well. So thank you again for that. Secondly, I had 3 meetings last Thursday morning, and I had some time in between and went down to the Nature Conservancy project at the Harvey Jones Channel and was pretty amazed at what's going on down there. It was a collaborative effort between Corrales, Rio Rancho, SCAFCA, AMAFCA, and probably about 17 other groups that were involved in that. But it is a free-flowing water system that's going to help with flooding, it's going to help on vegetation, and it's going to help for people who want to just traverse the bus gate. So I just wanted to mention that as well. So thank you.
Anyone else have a comment or something they want to discuss? Okay, well then we'll open up Corralinos Forum. And once again, this section is for informational purposes only, not for discussion or debate, to inform the governing body of an issue or concern that would not be addressed on the agenda during the business session. There is a 3-minute time limit unless approved by the presiding officer. Who do we have?
First up is Fred Hashimoto.
Oh,
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Greetings, new governing body. Nice to see you. And actually, looking at you, you're mostly vets here, except Councilor Miera, and he's been involved plenty. So welcome aboard. And I just want to thank you all for your services to the village, your volunteerism. I think that's just wonderful. Also, greetings to our new council format. It's just wonderful to meet in person. We've been doing Zoom for months and months, and in my profession, where decisions are made many times during one session, inpatient, face-to-face type of conversations, people, decision makers in the same physical space is really important for communication, for making decisions. So I'm just so delighted that I can see you all, you can see each other, and people can be involved. Now concluding, at the conclusion of last month's municipal elections, former Mayor Gary Keenan and had some residual monies left over in his campaign fund. And Gary felt that perhaps this residual should go to 2 organizations, split between 2 organizations. One is Animal Control, the Village of Corrales, and the second is the Corrales Library. And so on behalf of Gary Keenan, his campaign fund, the people who donated to it, and others in the village, I'd like to present to the Village of Corrales a check for $500 to Animal Control.
wow. So Animal Control.
Anyway, that'll help achieve some of the goals of Animal Control. Gary thinks it's a very important group. We all think it's important. Bill and Ron have underscored that tonight. And so, hopefully the village could use this $500. And also we will be sending a check to the Friends of the Corrales Library. Thank you.
Thank Gary very much for us. We really appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
Next is Mr. Kurt Flora.
Good evening, Mayor and councilors. Before I start, I would like to make sure that the councilors all received the paperwork that I handed in to the village. Did y'all receive this? And I'd also like to ask for a couple more minutes on my.
You get 3 minutes.
You get 3 minutes. Okay, that's all right. Okay, first, in 2014, there was a plat done on Eber Farms plat. There's 3 acres in front of our plat. In this plat, it was approved with 20-foot easement, okay, to include our property, 60B, with a 20-foot easement. That was in 2014. 2018, we go to the village, we turn in our plat, we asked to do a plat. We were told we could not do a summary plat, we had to do a preliminary plat. That is not true. We have 2 acres, we should have been able to do a summary plat. Okay. After that, there was a email sent out from, we go to our meeting, there was an email sent out to Mr. Garcia, Lori asking Mr. Garcia to supersede an ordinance, the ordinance that we were going to. Also, or going by. Also, Suzanne Huff and Kurt Flora requested a quick decision. We could give them the official attorney opinion right away. This wouldn't even be before planning and zoning. Okay, so we received not the official planning and zoning or opinion letter. We received a falsified document. The official record here states that the village should obey its own ordinance. It did not deny our subdivision under intermediate subdivision or anything else. It did not deny our subdivision. We received a falsified letter a couple of days later asking or telling us the village legal counsel has responded in the property in question will not qualify as an intermediate subdivision under 1996 and therefore does not qualify to use gross acre. Okay, this letter, the official one, my wife and I went to the village. We asked Sue Ann, we went in there to talk to Lori South, but Sue Ann Durr came out stating there is no opinion letter. There is no denial letter. Okay, from the attorney. Well, if there was no denial letter, then what is this letter here or the opinion letter? They held this letter from us for 821 days. They refused to give this to us. We IPA requested it, we IPA requested it, we IPA requested it. Okay. Here's the denial letter right here. Exhibit 117, we have over 120 exhibits. Exhibit 117 is in our meeting. Mr. Sawina says,
Your time's up,
I
sir.
would be delighted to move. I
Thank you,
move
Mr.
that
Huff.
we approve your
Who's
preliminary.
next, Melanie?
Your time's up, Mr.
Mr.
Flora.
Huff, time's up. Thank you very much. Thank you. Who's next, Melanie?
Time's up.
Is. Okay, so we ask you guys.
So who's the next person?
Falsifying meeting minutes.
Mrs. Huff Flora, you're signed up to speak. Did you want to say a few words?
We don't do that. You get 3 minutes and he gets 3 minutes.
Okay, so go up there and tell them. Okay, we got record of falsifying here. Falsifying minutes, falsifying minutes. Read off this right here. Things and what Lori said.
Mayor Fahey and councilors, I'm going to read directly, I guess, from these exhibits. Exhibit 117A, a motion was made by Commissioner Sawina stating that, in Mr. Sawina's voice, that we approve the preliminary plat, but to be modified that the hammerhead be 26 feet wide and 120 feet long, as opposed to what's shown on the plat. And secondly, that the structural adequacy of the ditch crossing be subject to the approval of the village.
That's what Lori stated.
Next one, Commissioner Sawina stated, and I would be delighted to move. I move that we approve the preliminary plat as submitted to us dated, the drawing dated October 5th, is that right? 2018, but to be modified that the hammerhead be 26 feet, hammerhead for the fire department be 26 feet wide and 120 feet long, as opposed to the 20-foot width and the 100-foot length shown on that plat. And secondly, that subject to satisfactory conversations with the city regarding the adequacy of the structural adequacy of the ditch crossing, or whatever it's called, the culvert, was whatever is at stake, that it's subject to those two issues that we would approve the preliminary plat. And what we are asking? Anything further? Anything further? Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you,
Mayor and
Ms.
Council.
Thank you. So
All right.
who's next, Melanie?
Our final person of the evening is going to join us by Zoom. It's Miss Story White. And Story, don't forget to unmute yourself, please.
Yeah, I got it. Hello, Mayor and councilors. My name is Story White, and I am a representative of the Corrales Equestrian Commission. And I have a question that they wanted, because they wanted a representative to come to each village meeting now. So my question to you is about the crosswalks that have been proposed down at Corrales Road in Cabazon, and also I think it's Romero. It's either Dixon or Romero. They're lighted crosswalks where pedestrians can, cross, and people can cross horseback. Is there any, has that gone forward at all, or what's the plan for that, I wonder?
So this is not designed to be a question and answer nor debate period. This is a time you make a comment, and the way this should probably be addressed is through your village council representative. And then he can bring that before the village council or before the appropriate department.
Okay, so my question, I guess, to you is, should we attend the budget meeting next week for this? Somebody?
Refer that to Mr. Curry.
I would suggest you reach out to Michael Chavez, who's Public Works Director. The only people attending the budget meetings next week will be the department heads and any of their staff. And then the results of the budget meeting will be presented in the workshop in front of the entire council.
Okay, all right, well, thank you.
But please reach out to Michael Chavez. He can give you lots of information.
He's our Public Works Director.
Yeah, he knows. He's well aware of it, I'm pretty sure.
Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Now we move to the consent agenda. All matters listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the village council and will be enacted on one motion. There will not be separate discussion of these items. If discussion is desired, a motion to remove the item from the consent agenda may be made, and that item will be considered separately. Does anybody wish to have anything removed from the consent agenda? Yes, Stuart.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to remove item on resolution 2217 for discussion.
What number is that?
Three.
Oh, three.
Number 3.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the remaining consent agenda?
So moved.
So I have a motion and a second to approve the remaining consent agenda. I'm going to go ahead and take a voice vote from each of you because we have some resolutions in there, just to kind of cover that. Councilor Mira, how do you vote? Councilor Waldman?
Aye.
Councilor Knight?
Aye.
Councilor Alsobrook?
Aye.
Councilor Burkett?
Aye.
Councilor Murray?
Aye.
Okay, Councilor Murray, go to it.
Thank you, Mayor, councilors. On 2217, this is a support for the funding of paving of sagebrush. I was just a little concerned that we were missing maybe a whereas, because it mentions going from Corrales Road up to Calle Blanca, but there's no mention of going further west. And so I want to make sure that we're covering that portion of the road, because I think it's mentioned in the documentation that it was supposed to be from Corrales Road all the way to the village limit.
Yes.
I just want to make sure that we're going to cover that portion that's not paved up through and to the trailhead.
Yes. Is Michael online?
Yes.
Michael, there we go. Michael, you want to address that?
Yes, Mayor, Councilors, Administrator Curry. So the application itself, what we will be doing is we will be paving from Loma Larga up to Calle Blanca. We're going to pulverize and widen that section. The section from Calle Blanca to the new trail, since it doesn't have any paving, we will be actually processing what's there of the base course. And we will need to design a trail on that, but we will be repaving that also, or paving it, I should say. And I'll stand for any questions.
So it will run all the way up.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Thank you.
so I need a motion to approve.
I move that we approve resolution 2217.
I second.
Oh, I have a motion for and a second for approval of resolution 2217. A resolution in support of the request for funding from the Transportation Project Fund for Sagebrush Drive bike path and pedestrian path. All those in favor signify, oh no, excuse me. Stewart, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilor Burkett, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilor Alsabrook,
Aye.
Councilor Knight,
Aye.
Councilor Woolman.
Hi, but I have a question. Can we do that after? I have a question regarding this project.
Is it going to affect your vote?
No.
Okay.
No.
Councilor Mier?
Aye.
Yes.
Okay, fire away.
Just a quick question on the bike lane. It can be widened to allow for bike lane. Do we have right of way? Does the village own the right of way all the way from the top of Sagebrush, Western Park, all the way down? Do we know?
So, councilors, mayor, we do own the right of way. So it'll go into design first. The upper section is a little bit narrower, but what we'll do is narrow the lane up there.
But below that, below the hill and down Sagebrush, we have the right of way for that.
Yes, we do. What we intend on doing is widening each side 2.5 feet. That'll give us our 5-foot lane, and then we'll actually move the center of the road over.
Great, thank you.
Okay, did you hear that?
Yeah.
Okay. So new business. So since we have a new mayor, we have to have confirmation of appointed officials per NMSA 3-11-5H. And I would like to have a motion to approve, to confirm Ron Curry as reappointment as village administrator.
So moved.
So I've got a
Second.
motion to approve Ron Curry in a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Now we move to Chief Manager Capra. I would like for the council to confirm Chief Manager Capra to his reappointment as Chief of Police. Do I have a motion and a second?
So moved. I'll second that.
So I have a motion for and a second to approve the reappointment of Chief of Police Manager Capra. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay. Last but not least, our village clerk. I would like to reappoint Melanie Romero as village clerk, who has done an excellent job. I need a motion and a second, please.
I'll move.
So I have a motion
Second.
and a second to appoint Melanie Romero, to reappoint Melanie Romero as village clerk. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Okay. So all you guys are approved. Now we move to the big business of the night, selection of mayor pro tem by the governing body. So I need to have some nominations from the council for those you would like to serve as mayor pro tem. Mayor pro tem serves in the absence of the mayor. Yes, Councilor Woolman.
Mayor, councilors, I'd like to nominate Stuart Murray to be mayor pro tem. With many years on planning and zoning and 2 years on the council, during which time he has been thorough in his review of all the actions of this body. I think he's an excellent candidate should that need arise. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mayor, I would reciprocate, but I think I will ask that maybe either Councilor Miera or Alsabrook. I don't know if I can submit two, but both of them
I
have.
think it's
experience.
better if you just do one.
Okay,
Pick your best
I'll
shot.
go with Mr. Councilor Alsabrook because of his past experience. He's a former councilor here, has past experience with this village. And I think I would be happy with him as mayor pro tem.
An editorial comment by the mayor. I don't think you can go wrong with any of the choices. I think they're all good candidates. They're all good people, and they'll all do a bang up job. So any more nominations? So we're going to cease nominations. Do I have a motion to cease nominations?
So move.
Second?
Second.
Okay, so you'll do this by hand vote or a secret ballot? I think we should just raise hands. How's that?
Yeah.
So for Stuart Murray. And for John Alsabrook. So does this mean I get a choice?
That's right.
Well, You know, I've worked with John Alsobrook, and I think I will lean toward Counselor Alsobrook for this time.
Thank you, Mayor.
Wow, I just didn't think that I didn't see that one coming.
Making his job hard already. I
Yeah,
guess.
geez, I gotta make choices. So now we move on to consideration, action, approval of resolution 2219, a resolution entering into a private easement agreement with San Ysidro, a New Mexico nonprofit corporation. I think this is once again Michael Chavez.
Chief.
Chief.
Chief? Oh, fire chief,
line.
the water line. Sorry, chief. I was thinking of the sewer line.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor, Council. As you have before you, Resolution 2219. You have heard me for the last, well, probably 4 years talking about trying to find easement to make our connection for the fire suppression line along Old
How could I
Church
not remember
and
that?
connect to Loma Larga. This would give us the approval to move forward to release some of our legislative funding that we have for this
Right.
project. With a, in agreement with the Casa San Isidro or the San Isidro Parish property. I do need to, I just noticed earlier that the resolution has a couple of typos. We just have to clarify. If approved. Any questions?
Sir, I'm sorry.
I'm just asking if there's any questions.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Stuart,
Oh,
then Melanie.
I'll defer. to Melanie.
Okay, Melanie, go ahead.
Hi, Chief.
Hi.
Thank you, Mayor and Councilors. I just wanted to kind of get a review of the wastewater issue that's there. So there's a hookup already to the church, the old church, as well as the current San Isidro. And that's where the wastewater line is going to go from Loma Larga.
Mayor,
didn't think there was
councilors,
one.
if Mike is still on Zoom, I don't know what all is hooked up on the wastewater line, but this easement would allow us to extend the wastewater line through this easement for future connections for the property owners, also to include to meet our the way we got the funding through the legislature was to provide future hookups for fire suppression and wastewater to the visitor center for the city of Albuquerque.
Okay,
But
so-
as far as connections existing, I don't know what's all hooked up in that area.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Stuart.
Thank you, Mayor and Councilors. Thank you, Chief. So I got a couple issues too with, well, I think you caught the typos. I think there's one on track 146 where it
Correct.
should be 147.
Mhm.
And then there's also references to MRGCD map 16, which there is no beast. I mean, it's a subdivision map, not a MRGCD property. So I think these things need to be taken care of. But also I wanted to know, what's the relationship of San Ysidro nonprofit to the Archdiocese? Because when I looked at the Sandoval County parcel map, it shows the Archdiocese of Santa Fe as being the owner of the property and not the nonprofit. So I'm kind of curious as the relationship between the two and who actually has ownership of that easement.
Mayor, if you like, we have representation here from the church. Father Gowan would be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. If he wants to do that.
Mr. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the council, the way the property works is that it is held in a trust by the Archdiocese, but the property actually does belong to the parish. That's the way it is set up. So it is the parish's property. It was placed in a trust. We have it in such a way that all the properties of the Archdiocese now are in a trust as the Archdiocese operates, but those properties do belong to the parishes.
And
So
the-
that property, the cemetery, was given to San Ysidro back in 1942, I believe it was, by Archbishop Vincent Byrne. And it was placed in trust for San Ysidro when it was a mission church at the time of Bernalillo, Our Lady of Sorrows. But it does in fact belong to the parish. but it isn't a trust that has been placed. We actually technically rent it from the Archdiocese. It's in a trust to the Archdiocese, but it does belong to the parish.
But there is a nonprofit associated with the parish. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay, I was looking on the Attorney General's office website, and I could not find any nonprofit that is as stipulated in the easement. So I was a little concerned. I want to make sure our ducks were in order and everything was on the up and up to make sure that this easement won't be challenged in anywhere.
Right.
Mayor, council, unless there's any other questions, I think everything's covered other than the, just the correction.
Any other questions? Okay, so I guess we're ready for.
Just one
Yes,
quick
go
one.
ahead.
Mayor.
Chief, are there sufficient funds to complete the project as outlined at this point?
We hope so. We have $75,000 from the state legislature that's been sitting there. And we have some savings on our Loma Larga project and other water projects funded by the state legislature. So we hope to be able to complete this project and make the connection.
Great. Thank you.
So we ready for the vote? Do I have a motion?
Mayor, quick
Resolution
que-
2219.
Mayor, quick question. Do we need to amend to make sure that the changes get implemented?
Randy?
Mayor, Councilor Murray, the way I deal with that is because they are just corrections. I would just in the motion state as corrected, but called out by the chief and Councilor Murray.
Mayor, then I would approve 2219 as corrected by the mentioned by us.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
So I have a motion for and a second to approve Resolution 2219. Councilor Murray, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilor Burkett?
Aye.
Councilor Woolman?
Aye.
Councilor Romero?
Aye.
Councilor Knight?
Aye.
Councilor Alsobrook?
Aye.
So this motion has passed and this resolution is approved. Okay, next, number 4, consideration action approval of resolution 2220, a resolution entering into an access easement agreement with San Ysidro, a New Mexico nonprofit corporation. Is this one you're going to talk about too?
Okay.
Okay.
Mayor, council, this resolution is to permit access easement for the parish, San Ysidro, to basically have access to the existing bridge that is owned by the city of Albuquerque off of Loma Larga. So along that Loma Larga, which is village owned, we have a very small portion of village owned property where my hydrant lines are going. And that's what they're requesting, that they need access over Village of Corrales property to get access to the city of Albuquerque bridge for future access to lot one on 147B.
Any questions? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor, Councilor. So how's that pipe going to be brought across that bridge? I mean, are you going to go underneath the acequia or are you coming across?
Mayor, Councilor, the pipe is already existing underneath the Middle Rio Grande Conservancy ditch. We have a license agreement currently with the Village of Corrales and them to allow the pipe. It's in a steel casing. It's been installed probably 3 years ago.
Okay.
Anticipating that we'd make a connection sometime in the near future, but it took a little
Thank you.
longer.
Thank you, Chief.
Yep.
Anyone else? Any other questions? Yes, Mr. Will.
I know that people who live next to the bridge, they were not happy when the bridge went in, and I'm sure you're aware of that. But I'm wondering in terms of the wastewater line, when that goes down, from Loma Larga and gets to at the end, the terminus, would they have access to using that for wastewater?
That would be a question for Mike Chavez. I'm just kind of being responsible, getting the easement to run the water line. He's in charge of the sewer line. And not knowing exactly where that property is, but I'm sure if Mike is on, he could probably talk about that.
Michael?
Yes, Mayor, councilors. We are in the process of designing a system. We're looking into designing a system that should pick up everybody on Loma Larga and up above. I'm not exactly sure where the property is, but we could either route them through the existing system or through the new one we've been kicking around.
Yeah, it's the first house past the bridge as you're going down. So, okay,
Going south? Going south?
going east. In other words, if you're coming from Loma Larga going east,
Okay.
just past the bridge.
Okay.
The bridge goes over, yeah.
All right. Any other questions? So I need a motion to approve resolution 2220, resolution entering into an access easement agreement with San Ysidro and New Mexico Nonprofit Corporation.
Mayor, I move that we approve resolution 2220.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion for and a second to approve resolution 2220. A resolution entering into an access easement agreement with San Ysidro. All those, Counselor Mira,
Yes.
Counselor Wilson,
Aye.
Counselor Knight,
Aye.
Counselor Alsobrook,
Aye.
Counselor Burkett,
Aye.
Counselor Murray.
Aye.
Thank you.
So that resolution is approved. Oh, yeah, one of our favorites. So next, number 5 is consideration, action, and approval of ordinance 2202. An ordinance to repeal and replace Chapter 8, Article 4 relating to the regulation of signs within the village of Corrales, providing for general sign regulation and exemptions from sign ordinance requirements.
Mayor, I don't know if Lori Stout is on with us tonight. I'm happy to present. She is. Lori, you want to take it and I'll fill in or?
Sure. Mayor, councilors, Administrator Curry. As you know, the sign ordinance was discussed at length during the ordinance subcommittee process, which, as you know, included some past village administration, planning and zoning commissioners, past and current citizens that were appointed by the councilors, and also staff, village staff, and Mr. Cog's staff. So it was looked at with a fine tooth comb. We think it's simple and clean. And best of all, of course, it's legal. It does not violate federal law, which did not allow legislation by content. Our code enforcement officer, Sherry Rice, is pleased with it as well. She's looking forward to its hopeful passage and believes it will be fairly straightforward to enforce. Very simply, there are in residential zones, there are temporary signs such as real estate or political type signs. There are permanent signs such as someone having a home occupation business. The commercial signs in commercial zones really didn't change much. It's very clear that no signs are allowed in public right of way and public property. I feel like this thing has been thoroughly vetted. We're really pleased with it. And we hope that it passes. Thank you.
Any questions? Counselor Burkett.
Just for a point of clarification, how are we handling real estate signs? Because right now a temporary sign has a limit of 60 days. It looks like you have to have a permit if it's going to be over 60 days, but they're not going to know it's going to be over 60 days until day 59. So how are we anticipating handling those? And not just on the properties, but also if people want to put them down at the end of roads as directionals?
Well, again, all signs and that are not commercial or not in commercial zones, rather, will need to be on private property and not in the public right of way. And I talked to Officer Rice a little bit about, some of these signs, and it really honestly hasn't been a big problem here. If something is brought to her attention or she notices something being up over long, then she can have a conversation with the person who has, or the entity who has posted the sign. In the past, the only other option would be to have every single person come into the village and do a sign permit, which would be really unwieldy. And I think Officer Rice would spend most of her time chasing down signs. So we don't think it's going to be a huge problem. Again, if she gets a complaint from someone who says, this thing's been up for 3 months or whatever, she'll deal with it at that time.
So, I mean, just to ask the question further, so if somebody complained that their neighbor had a real estate sign up for 3 months, would we at that point then go and tell them they have to take that sign down for 60 days?
No, what Sherry would do would just ask them to take it down, or we could treat it as a permanent sign. They could get a we can treat it as a permanent sign. They can get a sign permit. And then if that permanent, quote, permanent sign only stays up for 4 months, then so be it. I think she could go either way, ask them to take it down for a while, put it back up, or just treat it as a permitted sign and call it a permanent sign.
Stuart.
Thank you, Mayor, councilors. Yeah, I have concern about that 60-day requirement as well, because it looks like, as Councilor Burkett has said, you could have a 3-month sign up, and then you have the enforcement officer go and talk to her, and then the 60-day requirement seems really superficious. I mean, it doesn't serve any purpose other than because it's up to the enforcement officer. It seems like it's out of place or it's not going to be enforceable. So why even bother with the 60-day requirement on a temporary sign?
All right.
Well, again, we can't legislate by content, but it's either temporary or it's not. Something like a political sign. There are other instances where there might be a temporary sign. And, again, if it's not going to be temporary, then we'll consider it permanent. And if someone takes it down at some point, that's quite all right. We'll just treat it as a permanent sign.
And if I may, Mayor, the reality is that most temporary signs are garage sale signs, real estate signs, directional signs such as that. And in my discussions with the enforcement folks, there just really are not too many issues that come up. If there are, it's one of those situations where we can address them, as Lori has pointed out. And if it becomes a problem for the village, then we could create a permitting process. But it really doesn't seem to make sense for a temporary sign, particularly political signs and real estate signs. They happen all the time. If we regulate it as little as we can, it seems that is the best solution, unless they're posted illegally, like on right of way or on utility poles. Then they just get taken down because they're illegally posted.
John.
Thank you, Mayor. I have just a couple of questions. One, regarding exempt signs. 892G2, exempt signs, signs required by law or signs of a duly controlled constituted government body. And here's my question. Or signs advertising village entertainment or events that are sanctioned by a formal resolution. So that sanctioning by a formal resolution of the governing body, would that include political signs? And I'm asking primarily because the office, commercial and municipal zone requires fees for temporary signs. But it seems to me I could interpret an election as being an event duly authorized by resolution, and my candidate puts up a sign, I'm advertising that election. And like I said, this is for the OC and M zones, because I think it's good that we have A1, A2 and H where that's not an issue at all.
That's an interesting question, Counselor. One I don't think that was anticipated by either our help from the Middle Rio Grande Council of Governments, and we didn't think of that particular question. I think that what would happen is there'd have to be a resolution for the approval of a particular sign, Harvest Festival, for example, so that the calling of the election wouldn't constitute approval or a requirement to put up signs. I think that would be the distinction.
Okay, all right. Thank you. My second question is about the fee schedule. 895 simply says application fee. The fee to be charged for a sign permit is detailed in the fee schedule available in the village office. What's the mechanism for setting up the fee schedule and where is that defined?
We already have a resolution for the fee schedule that can be charged for various planning and zoning applications and actions. And I believe it's $2 per square foot for a sign.
So that schedule is by resolution of the governing body?
Correct. It already exists.
Previously.
Okay. All right. Very good. Very good.
Ms. Walden.
Yeah, just a quick question, Lori. We are welcoming to the film industry to come to Corrales and film. One of the sections talks about no signs and utility poles. There are directional signs repeatedly by crews on utility poles. How are you going to deal with that?
That is a good question. Technically, by our sign ordinances, or sign ordinance, it should be on private property, not on the Corrales Road power poles. And again, that's something we did not anticipate. So that's a good question. I think what we need to do is probably ask the film crews to put their signs on private property only, just like everyone else.
And as a point of clarification for Ms. Stout, that always requires property owner's approval for placement of signs on their property.
Correct.
Also, Brooke?
That would be a non-standard practice for the industry to do that and all of the production companies that put up signs. I'm wondering if instead we could consider some form of exemption, which would not be content-based, but duration-based, 2 days or ownership. I'm just trying to think of a way to not make their lives difficult, because this is what they do day in and day out all over the country. They use utility poles, and utility companies don't like it, but those signs are promptly taken down as soon as the base camp moves.
Councilor Burkett?
Yeah, it seems like that could maybe be some verbiage in our permitting that we do when they come and film in the village, that they have the ability to do that, but they have 48 hours to remove them or something along those lines, that we could work that into a different document. That I don't know if it would have to be carved out in this as well, or if we could put that in the permits that they do when they film in the village.
The problem that we ran into in drafting this, and the reason that it kind of went from a very detailed ordinance to a bare bones ordinance, was because of the content neutrality required by the Supreme Court. So as soon as we start singling out any particular use that can have an exemption based on content, then we run into the same problem. So we'll tackle it. We'll talk to Lori and enforcement and Ms. Rice and work it out. I don't think it would be good to have a formal solution in our ordinance.
Yes.
One more quick point, just the same section that you brought up, G2, would that be considered a government sanctioned entertainment or event where it would be considered exempt because we did offer them a permit for filming in the village?
That's possible. That is there could be a solution to it where there is going to be a quote, a designation monthly of the films that are going to be filming within the village and associated signage to get crews to those sites.
Anyone else have a question or a comment?
We do have somebody signed up for public comment on this item, whenever that comes up.
I don't have a motion, so.
So we'd have to do public comment.
Okay. Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Mr. Tim Sawina. And you'll have 3 minutes.
Mayor, point of order.
Several times.
Mayor, point of order.
Sorry, Stuart. Yes.
In the past, with the other council meetings, we've had people who are sworn in as to speak before council. Are we going to do that, or are we bypassing that?
It wasn't. Go ahead. I hadn't planned that. It wasn't planned. It's not something I think is required. I'll defer to Mr.
Mayor and council, the distinction is when we're approving ordinances, it is a public meeting, but it does not require swearing in because it's not a quasi judicial proceeding. So it's just a public comment on the specific ordinance, but it does not require swearing in.
I'm just looking for maybe identification by people coming up to speak. They give their name, who they are.
Name and address should be given.
Yes. So name and address, please.
Okay. Sure. My name is Tim Sawina, and I live at 65 Calle Amarilla here in Corrales. And Mr. Mayor and, excuse me, members of the Village Council, I'm speaking in strong favor for the newly updated Chapter 8, Article 4. When I wrote this, I wasn't sure who wrote the actual thing, but from Lori, it sounds like it's a group effort. And I just want to say they did a very good job. It's clear, concise, and very complete. And as a former member of the Planning and Zoning Commission, I know that that is not always easy to do. I appreciate that this updated code unequivocally states that no private sign is ever appropriate or legal if it is placed on public land. This is true whether your private sign is for your favorite candidate or selling your house or promoting your business. The code is now crystal clear about that the public land is not to be used for private signs that express personal views or private business interests. And I'm also pleased that you recognize that our ditch banks, which are supervised by MRGCD, are also public spaces that run through the very heart of Corrales. In Corrales, the ditch banks are like a community park. Under the code, these public lands will also now be free of private signs of any type. The only concern I have and why I came tonight is that this section of the new ordinance does have a potential loophole in line 158 that I think might be closed or clarified. The code clearly says that Corrales does not want the ditch banks to be used to promote private interests or political opinions. However, it sounds as if such signs could be allowed if someone simply has a friend at MRGCD who is willing to write a note saying it is okay with them. And I think this kind of permission is certainly not in the spirit of the Corrales Code, which seeks to protect our public spaces. But it would be possible, maybe easy to get. Now, virtually all the businesses or home occupations that I'm aware of, I don't think would do that. But I'm afraid that there could be someone who might try to get such permission. So I would respectfully ask you to look at that line, 158, and add a few words that clarify that such an exception should be only for a public and not a private purpose. I recognize that we do not have full control over what MRGCD decides. But if our village administration has not already done this, and I hopefully they have, it might also be a good idea to have a conversation with the leadership at MRGCD in which we reaffirm our strong interest in ensuring that the ditch banks are free of unnecessary signs. Let them know how important it is to maintain the natural beauty and simplicity of these public lands that run through the heart of Corrales.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, John.
A follow-up question to that for the village attorney. Do we have appropriate agreements in place with MRGCD and SCAFCA that allow us to legislate use of for us to pass legislation for use of their land?
Counselor, that's exactly the right question. I think it really is a political issue that the village needs to take on with the other local governments that make up the area to discuss that. Because right now, a public entity is very much in the same place as a private entity, and we can't control what a private person or commercial business would do on a corner that wants a directional real estate sign, nor should we. So I think that discussion should be had with the Conservancy District and SCAFCA and other entities who are owning land within village limits. I don't think we should amend the ordinance because we do not have control of what those entities do with their property.
So I guess it's okay for me to say that at SCAFCA, policy is that we don't promote any political entities or individuals. So therefore, if we have property, they don't put signs on that property. But that's SCAFCA. I can't speak for MRGCD. And we don't want to get involved in campaigns as another government entity that has to work with everybody. So we don't want to show favoritism or promote any individual who's running for an office. I would assume, just my past experience with MRGCD, they're probably very similar to that. So even though someone can go ask them, depending on what the sign might be, if it's a political sign, they're going to say, more than likely, I would anticipate they'll say no, just because it's their policy, I would assume.
I have a question, Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
So if there was a sign that was, it was given permission years ago, that a directional sign could be put on MRGCD property, is that going to be illegal now, or does that,
Oh,
how does that work?
Yeah, I don't know about that. I don't have a clue about MRGCD.
It would be between MRGCD and the individual who placed the sign to, if the agreement's still in place, then it's fine. We can't regulate it if MRGCD is allowing it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and you know, when you're talking about these, we can go through all kinds of hypotheticals. And you know, it's a never ending chase your tail thing, trying to, well, what if this happens? Well, what if, we don't know that? And we deal with the majority of them. And that's what I think has happened with this correction, this ordinance we have.
Can I ask just a philosophical question? And this is going to probably stray far from where I need to go, but how are we comfortable telling people what they can and can't put on their private property when we have complete discomfort telling another organization that runs through the village that they can do, we'll respect whatever their decision is?
I
As
don't,
far
I'm
MRGCD.
sorry, maybe I missed that. I didn't realize.
Well, just if we're saying that if MRGCD says they're okay with a sign being there forever, that's their decision to make.
That's
How
their
are we?
property, right?
It is, but so I'm saying if somebody wants to put one on their front lawn, we're not allowing that for more than 60 days.
Well, Councilor Burkett, good question. And kind of as a clarification, it would have to be a sign that is legally allowed under our code to begin with. So in other words, if it's a directional sign, it's a temporary sign, then we treat it as a temporary sign. If it's a legal directional sign that would be allowed for anyone on any private property, then we would allow that. So it's going to be case by case. Is it legal? You're correct. We wouldn't create a different rule for the public entity than a private.
Okay, I mean, I guess maybe I'm misunderstanding it. Are we not saying then it's something on MRGCD property? If they said we're fine with it, that we would not enforce our policy over their policy?
No, we're saying they're going to have to follow our rules just like anyone else. If they wanted to post a temporary, if they gave permission to a realtor to do a directional sign on that property as a temporary sign, then they're good to go. But the same rules will have to apply to them like anyone else.
Okay, same size limits, same durations, all of those.
Correct.
Wow. Okay, so do I have a motion to approve ordinance 2202, ordinance to repeal and replace Chapter 8, Article 4 relating to the regulation of signs within the village of Corrales, providing for general sign regulations and exemptions from sign ordinance requirements?
Mayor, I move we approve ordinance 22-02.
Do I have a second?
As you just described.
Have a second? Okay, does anybody have anything else they'd like to say? Any other discussion, any other comments you might have?
Philosophy?
Yeah, philosophy, you know. So, Councilor Miera, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councilor Woolman, how do you
Aye.
vote? Councilor Knight,
I'm going to have to recuse myself because this directly affects my husband's business.
okay.
So,
Councilor Alsabrook,
Aye.
Councilor Burkett,
Aye.
Councilor Murray.
Aye.
Okay, so we've approved ordinance 22-02. Okay, now we go to 22-03, an ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of not more than $1,935,000 of general obligation bonds, series 20-2022A pursuant to NMSA, et cetera. I'm going to stop there.
My apologies for the mouth.
No, it's okay. I just-
Mayor and council.
Verbatim.
Good evening. I'm Jill Sweeney from Sherman and Howard Bond Council to the Village, and you have before you ordinance number 2203 authorizing the issuance and sale of not more than $1,935,000 general obligation bonds. As most of you are aware, the purpose of this ordinance is to facilitate the expenditure of the remaining authorization by your voters for the issuance of general obligation bonds, primarily for recreational purposes. And this is the remainder of the authorization that was given by the voters in 2020. As most of you are aware, we've been before you with an informational item, and then also with the NMFA application, which was approved by the governing body, and then for the publication resolution, your last meeting, and now our last stop here for the approval of the ordinance. So I'd like to quickly draw your attention to section 2 of the ordinance, in which this body set parameters for this issuance, including the par amount that shall not exceed $1,935,000. The final maturity date not to exceed August 1, 2032. Interest rate on any particular series not to exceed 3%. The combined true interest cost of all series not to exceed 4%. And because of the timing of the NMFA action and the action and timing of this body, the interest rate has been set and all of the parameters have been established. So if it please the council, we merge items 6 and 7 for presentation purposes. You do also have in your packet the pricing certificate, which is an informational item to be brought to the council following the pricing. And the purpose of that pricing certificate is to acknowledge that indeed those parameters have been met. And so you will see that that those parameters include the issuance of the tax exempt series sold to the New Mexico Finance Authority, that the date of the issuance of the bonds is expected to be May 20th, 2022. The bonds will be sold at 100%, meaning not at a premium and not at a discount. And that the bonds will not be subject to optional or mandatory sinking fund requirements. And so all of those parameters established in the ordinance have been met and are laid out in your pricing certificate that will be signed by the mayor. So specifically, because we have the luxury of timing, you have the maturity schedule in your packet that shows that the net interest cost of the bonds will be 2.189208%. And so very, very successful sale in this environment. So congratulations to the council on that. And we will now move toward the closing of the bonds, which means we'll publish the notice of adoption of ordinance and wait the 30 days statute of limitations period, and then proceed to closing on or about May 20th. And after that date, funds can be requisitioned from the finance authority out of the escrow account, and you can be on your way to facilitating the projects that are anticipated to occur as a result of the availability of these bond proceeds. And with that, Mayor, members of the council. I'm
So I
happy
have
to
one
stand for
question.
any
So
questions.
did you say the interest rate on our bonds is going to be 2.1892%?
The net
Net.
interest rate. So if you take a look.
I saw the different numbers.
Right, so you have a maturity schedule that's attached to the back of the pricing schedule, the pricing certificate, and my apologies, I usually have the electronic board book number, but I think I slipped a groove this afternoon when I had my paper. So each maturity has been assigned an interest rate. So they range from the August 1st, 2023 interest rate of 1.620%. And if I'm looking at my quick math here, all the way up to the highest interest rate, of course, is farthest out. August 1st, 2031 maturity of 2.380.
Yes, I see that. Okay.
Okay, and so the number that the net We have all kinds of numbers in the pricing. So what typically we'll look at the net interest cost and the true interest cost, which are, aggregated for you as a measure of how well, relative term, right? How well the pricing of those bonds went in this market compared to other jurisdictions. And interest rates are going up.
Right.
And one of the reasons for the timing of this bond, and we've seen a lot of projects and a lot of potential transactions, frankly, that have fallen off because they're no longer economically feasible. And so this worked very well. I'm not your financial advisor. Brad Angst from Stifel is.
No,
He's
I
not
remember the
able to be here
conversation.
tonight. But from what we're seeing from where we sit and what's occurring in other New Mexico jurisdictions as they're looking to the future and whether they have an opportunity to take advantage of their authorization, I think the timing worked well and the interest rate is right in there where other communities of this size are finding themselves for projects of this size. So congratulations.
So approval tonight,
Mhm.
wait 30 days.
Approve the ordinance, publication of the notice of adoption of the ordinance, wait 30 days, finish the closing certificates,
And
which
get our money.
basically is, filling in the numbers for the results of the sale that we were fortunately able to provide to you tonight. And then we'll have the closing where we'll have,
We
you'll
get our
sign on
money.
behalf of the village, clerk will sign on behalf of the village, and then we'll do closing and on or about. And Finance Authority obviously will sign the bond purchase agreement. They're the purchaser, and all of that will come together in a pre-closing before May 20th, and then we'll have a conference call on the morning of May 20th, where we'll all, get on the line and look each other in the eye hypothetically and say, we've dotted all the i's and crossed all the t's and we're ready to close. And at that time, you're free to requisition the funds.
Okay. Any questions? Bill?
Yeah, quickly. We've had a fair number of presentations on this bond, and I may have missed something, but I just wanted to go back.
Mhm.
So this is for $1,935,000.
Yes, sir.
The voters approved 2.5 million
Yes, sir.
in March of 2020,
Mhm.
which leaves $565,000. Has that, and if
Which
you
has been
consider
issued.
fees, sorry,
Which has been issued.
which has been issued,
The remaining balance was previously issued in 2021.
already committed.
Mhm. So this is your last, so you have 4
This is
years
it.
to spend, right? 4 years to sell the bond, sell that authorization before it magically disappears under the statute. So you have done that. So all of your authorization for 2020 is available to you.
So I did miss something. I was hoping like LGIP, we found another $500,000.
I'm sorry, I'll work on my magic wand.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor, councilors. Is there an expiration date at which these funds have to be spent? I mean, they just can't sit there forever.
I'm correct, Counselor, Mayor,
sorry, go
members
ahead.
of the council. So these are tax exempt bonds. So the rule of thumb under the tax code, section 103 of the tax code, is that you have a reasonable expectation that you spend the funds within 3 years.
Oh, is
If
it?
you don't spend the fund
3
with,
years?
Mhm. If you don't spend the 3 years, they don't take away your birthday, but you start to look at arbitrage and, and other things. So the rule of thumb is, and your commitment in obtaining the tax exempt interest rate is that you're committing to use your best efforts. You have to have a reasonable expectation, the words in the tax code, that you will spend these funds within 3 years.
So we're already 1 year into the 2021 funding. So we've got 2
Yes.
years to spend that money,
Mhm.
but 3 years from tonight, spend the rest. Okay.
Yes, Bill.
So this may be a question for Ron. Once the money is in our bank account and we can spend it, is there, and I know we've done a lot of preliminary work with Facility Build and others on the recreation center. Do we know a start date and an estimated time of completion? How long it may take?
Lynn Sieberts is he talked at Facility Build yesterday, matter of fact, And he's going to have those final numbers within the next 2 weeks.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Councilwoman, just as a point of clarification, those funds are held in escrow by the New Mexico Finance Authority. And so we do have to requisition those funds through the authority, and we say, this is what we're going to spend these proceeds on, and we're looking to you to release them for proper, for proper purposes. So we don't get to hold those funds here at the village. They're held in this case by the Finance Authority, who's our bond purchaser.
So is that what I saw?
That's the escrow fund that's attached, the escrow agreement that's attached to the ordinance.
So is that what I saw in here, $5,000 increments? Is that what is referred to in the body of the bond discussion?
That's how they
Integral
can,
multiples of 5,000?
that's how they can sell them, but that doesn't have anything to do with.
Nothing with this.
Doesn't have anything to do with
Use
requisition.
of
You could
funds.
requisition the whole thing if you have proper documentation that it's for the purpose for which this bond was issued.
Anything else? Okay. So I need a motion. So since you told us about them both, can we do both at the same time? Oh, we don't need to
Mr.
do
Mayor,
anything. We don't have
members
to do the
the
pricing.
council, if we could have a vote on the ordinance, and then the second item is an informational
Right,
item.
right.
We actually have, 180 days to come back to you with that information, but we have it today, and it's cleaner and more succinct than to give the presentation twice. So I thank you for
My
your
mistake.
efficiency.
So do I have a motion to approve ordinance 22-03 and ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of not more than $1.935 million of general obligation bonds? I'd rather say 1.935 million. It just sounds so much more money.
Mayor, I move that we approve ordinance 2203.
I'll second that. So I have a motion for and a second for approval of ordinance 2203. Councilor Murray, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilor Burkett,
Aye.
Councilor Alsobrook,
Aye.
Councilor Knight,
Aye.
Councilor Woolman,
Aye.
Councilor Miera.
Aye.
Very good.
First night out, I already spent 1.9 million. So.
We haven't spent it yet, but it won't take long.
Well, hoping to get that.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. So we have some commission, these are new appointments to the Corrales Library Board, Kelly Leba and Betsy Anfield for a new appointment to the Equestrian Advisory Commission. I think you've got their applications. One has been a library volunteer for a number of years, and the other one has a lot of experience in working with horses and interest also. I mean, you have to have interest in. Anyway, I would like to get a motion we can do both at the same
Mayor?
time.
I motion that we accept Kelly Leba and Betsy Arnfield for their new appointments on the library board and the Equestrian Advisory Commission.
Do I have a second?
Second.
So I have a motion for and a second for confirmation of commission appointments for Kelly Leba and Betsy Anfield. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. They are confirmed. Okay, so now, Councilor Murray's favorite item, future agenda items. Do you have any offhand?
Now I'm going to surprise you. No.
And Councilor Woolman wants to, you want to deal with, can you phrase it the way you want to approach it?
Well, given the previous discussion from the administrator, I was going to suggest that on the meeting of April 26th, like place on the agenda, a full discussion of animal care and the policies of the village.
Could we go another meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And in the meantime, there will be, Dennis Friends will be organizing something to do a survey and
Right.
needs and things. And do we know who they might be talking with?
I think they're talking to two different folks, two different organizations.
I mean, who those organizations might be speaking with?
I believe one of them is the Animal Humane Association,
Okay.
but
We
I
don't.
think that you'd want to,
We don't really have, yeah. No, we've heard,
We've heard that, but
we don't know.
we don't know.
Yeah, I would think you'd want an independent.
We want an independent, unbiased,
Right.
outside entity. And that's the way we phrased it.
Yep.
And that's what we're hoping to get more information, more suggestions, hopefully better ideas.
I can tell you that many years ago, there was there were two things. One was appointed by the mayor, a group of people to take a look at whether or not the village should have a shelter, an animal shelter in the village. Many meetings, report was issued and not accepted. Secondly, there was a second study as whether or not there should be an adoption center here in the village. Some of those were conducted by a group out of Austin and
I remember
quite
that.
professional and thorough. Some of that may still be around, some of that information, but that kind of body, I would suggest, might be good to take a look.
We'll try to do our due diligence and present you the information and data.
Excellent.
Okay?
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mayor, I lied.
You thought of something.
Could we get an update on the irrigation from the MRGCD about what the status is and so forth?
Yes, I think someone else has said that too. About when they're going to start irrigation and how things are proceeding.
Yeah. I mean, I saw water in the ditch, but it's gone. So,
Well, that was the first flush to get all the trash out.
yeah.
And according to the ditch rider, our ditch rider, it's going to happen, anytime. And how
Sure.
often have you heard that? But that first flush was to clear the ditch. And then they'll, I guess, look for any problems and then they'll start the flow.
Yeah, I just think we need an update, just to let
Okay.
her know.
We can do that. Anybody else?
There, I have a question. So we were handed this evening.
Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. I forgot it, Melanie. Were you trying to get my attention?
No, I forgot to.
So we
there
have a
any
number
councilors
of
that forgot?
committees. I've lost mine. And I would like for you all to look through these different committees. Don't pay attention to whose names are there. Just see if they sound, what you can glean from what's here, what it sounds like. If you want to go online and look it up, that's great too. But we have certain responsibilities to be involved in these meetings. Having done this at SCAFCA, I can assure you, it can occasionally be sort of a pain, but it's good to be at the table to be involved in the discussion. So please, if you see something you would like to do for a while, even if it's just for a few months or, maybe 1 year, because we'll revisit this next year for sure. Let me know and we can talk about it again next meeting, kind of at the end like now.
Good.
Okay? If you have any questions, we can certainly help you out. We can find out more information and tell you. Anything else?
Mayor, I'd like to recognize two guests we have with us tonight.
Oh, sorry.
Our state senator, Senator McKenna. And
She's got a mask on. How?
and also Kathy Brook,
Yes.
County Commissioner that perhaps will be representing Corrales in the near future.
Very
If they
good.
want to say any comments or any words or not.
Did you want to say something? Any of you want to say something? Did you have a good time?
I did.
Yes.
Actually, I was just gonna compliment you, Mayor. Thank you for running such a on target meeting tonight.
Well, thank you
For
very
the first
much.
one out, I think you did a fine job. And I met some of you individually, and I'm just happy to get more involved in everything you know, to learn more about the needs and interests of this community.
Is this on?
I hope so.
It is.
So thank you, Mayor. Thank you, counselors. Yeah, I was looking forward to coming tonight because it's been a short time since our short session concluded and our super short session of 1 day. And so if anybody has any questions about capital outlay or the junior funds that I put forth, I can certainly answer those questions at your April meeting or thereafter.
So I want to say that I really appreciate the monies that you have got us. Didn't you provide us the funds for the interior drain, to study the interior drain? You recall
I
offhand?
think so.
That's too tough a question.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
you did. And I really appreciate that because we really think that's going to be something good for us because the fire chief wants to use it for a fire line. We'd like to use it also to put in a sewer line at some point. We haven't quite planned that out, but I want to thank you very much. And also, if you ever have any, little bit of money laying around, 150, 200,000, always think of Corrales.
Or big bits of money, think of Kraus as well.
Yeah.
But
Very
thank you
good.
very much. And thanks for, and I apologize. I'm still trying to figure out how to do this job. It's a little different.
Not to worry, Mayor, and look forward to working with you and the counselors and the clerk for next year's capital outlay exercise.
Yes, ma'am.
All
Thank you
right.
very much.
Thank you.
Mayor, I have
Yes,
a
oh,
question, if
excuse
I
me.
could.
Sorry, Bill.
Senator and Ron, I know you've been involved with the monies coming from the state, from the federal government. I have a question about broadband. The interior drain is going to be dug up perhaps.
Sorry.
Sewer suppression lines would be an opportune time, I think, to put some broadband in there as well for the village. Do you know where we are?
Are we with the broadband?
So we've contracted with someone to do a kind of a study for us to help figure out the best plan. Kind of the initial idea is that we would do a combination of fiber along Corrales Road. And then from there, branch out to some wireless broadband. The main drawback with that is that it has to be line of sight.
Right.
And with all the trees, there might be some places where
In hills.
that would be an issue. But yeah, we actually need to schedule a meeting with that gentleman now that we have our new mayor on board. And
So this would be basically trunk lines and then like that last mile or last street or last half block as well.
Yes.
For the entire village.
yeah, so the idea is he's going to help us figure out a plan that we can then use to turn around and get the funding, because you need the plan to get the money. But we also need money to pay for the plan, so.
So
It's kind of a catch-22, but
So
we're
just
working on
just
it.
a question for the planning people, right? What happens to those who already have high-speed internet to their homes that they're paying for? Maybe you could just put that in the equation.
Okay.
We'll
That
ask.
might affect
Yeah.
it.
And I do know we had something come through from, I believe it was Verizon. They have a plan to bring 5G to the village, so they're working on that right now.
It'll be costly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank all of you. So does anybody else want to speak, campaign or? I'm teasing. Okay. Well, it appears.
Don't fall first.
I know, I've got to be careful. It appears we've come to the end of our agenda.
Mayor, I move we adjourn.
You're adjourned.
Good job.
Kathleen?
Oh, thank you. I'll do better next time.